I am thrilled that I finally have the opportunity to listen to this new Halestorm song with you. I'm sure probably some of you are like, well, I've been waiting for some more music reactions for long enough. I've been waiting to react to this song for long enough, and it has been hard. Actually, to parody off the lyrics, it's been a long road out of a busy schedule in regard to covering this. And I'll tell you, as I stated in the past, I love reacting to music. It's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, to listen to music with you guys for the first time, especially for some of my favorite groups. Starset, you can say, was absolutely the launch pad for this. I love covering those songs. If you've never listened to Starset, by the way, good rock group. I cover their whole album, Horizons. Excellent album. Still, it's such a fun listen. But as I said, music for me, and I think I said this on the videos for different times, music for me is a first love, even beyond many of the other types of entertainment that I cover on this channel. I've been a music connoisseur for many, many years. Starset gave me the doorway into doing that. Halestorm is now the newest group we're looking at today. I wanted to cover this one specifically because it's been a couple days since the video debuted, and ideally, and as I try, I would have covered this the day that it released. It just didn't work out I couldn't even tell you the variety of reasons. So I'll paint this picture for you, though, to understand how I'm faring with this. I've been in the car, for just driving down the road for maybe an extracurricular activity, or maybe I had to do a shopping trip, maybe my workouts, and I have Halestorm on, right? Because I hadn't listened, admittedly, to Halestorm for... they've been on my phone, not to say anything ill about the group. It's just, I have a lot of music I listen to, so maybe some music gets lost in the shuffle over time. Maybe some music doesn't fit the mood that you're in at maybe another opportunity. I hadn't listened to Halestorm for a while, until Back from the Dead came out, the first single, which is great. But that got me back on the hype train. And then this new track came out currently, its new single, The Steeple, for, as of right now, their undated album. I believe it's coming out sometime in 2022, but the release date hasn't been specified. But I knew immediately, okay, they're putting the song out, there's an album on the way, they already had that first single, get it queued up, and hopefully cover it on time. Well, getting back in the mood for Halestorm, I'd been in my car, as I said, driving, and just trying to find moments where I could plug in, getting refreshed, because it's been a while. Every time, because I would put the tracks on shuffle mode, right? And you know how that works, like if you got an iPhone, it plays the variety of songs within your playlist, attributed to that group, maybe however you specify it. And every time, The Steeple would pop up. And I couldn't listen to it, because I'm like, well, I haven't covered it yet. So, as disappointing as it was to continue having to wait this long, I'm finally in a position to listen to The Steeple with you guys first. Halestorm, I have to throw out this qualifier. Some of you might say, based on my familiarity and experience, that I couldn't be considered the biggest fan. And I think that, not to say again that I don't find an interest in Halestorm, but because I haven't listened to all of their tracks yet. It's something that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go through their other albums and give them a fair listen. In the time since, I've added like 6 or 7 songs to my phone currently that I'm like, this is really good, especially their first album. Their first album's great. Their premiere one really set the bar for them, I think. But I love spotlighting rock groups, especially. This is music that personally resonates. I tend to prefer the more aggressive style. And Lzzy Hale's voice. Out of the broad range of women-led bands, in terms of lead singers I listen to, she has an amazing voice. And of course, her overall pitch is great, but her aggressiveness in the way that she sings is fabulous. Some of my favorite tracks, who doesn't love I Miss the Misery? Or Mayhem, one of my favorites. How can you not love Mayhem if you're a rock fan? That song is just beautiful. But let's see how The Steeple is. I can't wait to listen to it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the song queued up. And of course, we're going to go more into a discussion with this after listening to the song together. And I will tell you, this is going to be an interesting song to dissect. This is a very sophisticated piece. Much more so than you might think. Again, I'm going to judge the music in a minute, because that's, to pair the music with the lyrics, that's going to be an interesting amalgam. We'll see how well it gels. But I've read the lyrics in advance, and of course, for your convenience, I will pull up the lyrics as the song goes on so you can read it for yourself, as well as if you want to read it down below in the comment section later on, I'll have them referenced there as well. It's, I think, the pinned comment. But this song is very deep. It's really deep, and it has a personal resonance. And I will say as well, going into this, this is not the last time I'll talk about Halestorm. If they get some new songs, I might listen to them on this channel, but I will tell you, as I've been saying, I've kind of given this plug out maybe sporadically. I have another channel in the works called Symphonies and Small Talk. That will be debuting sometime. I'm trying my best to get this up and running at the time that I'm intending. January 2023, that is my release date of the first of the year. That's when that channel will go online. And I will tell you, Halestorm is going to make an appearance. I'm very excited to actually launch that channel, by the way. If you're into music reactions and you want to see more of that, It's going to be a bit different because that's going to mainly focus on music that I've listened to, but music that I think is edifying, valuable, or just overall really, a fun listen, or there's some substance to talk about. I'm excited very much so for that channel because it's going to be a doorway to, I love covering music on here, but this is like more so a first time, listen, right? That's kind of the way I've envisioned it. Symphonies and Small Talk, it'll allow me a chance to talk about, my broad range of favorites from, growing up and where I'm at today, and just overall just be able to enjoy music on a very deep and personable level. So make sure in the meantime you subscribe so you can get prepared for January 2023. I know it's going to be a while, but just trust the process here. All right, without further ado, though, let's go ahead and listen to the Steeple. Here we go. I can't wait to talk about this, but let's pair some music to the lyrics. Yeah, let me get my headphones. Right? Classic style. I do feel like she's staring at me. It's kind of like, okay, it's a very piercing expression. Good blend. That is such a good line. Very poetic. It's colored differently, but I kind of get a bit of a Black Vultures vibe from the choreography. Good shift. The softer style for the choreography it's a good blend with the message, actually. Nice background touch. Love it. This switch is so good. It's a really inspirational message. I can't wait to talk about the lyrics, but it's a really good expression here. There's a real vulnerability as well in the presentation. Maybe it's the white, but it blends very well with the theme of the song. It's interesting. It's a good mirror. Let the vocals shine. Told you she could sing.
And these are my people.
It's softer in regard to how she's singing, but you can still hear that rough edge. I love it. Just that last note of resonance being like, okay, the last impression you have, remember Lizzie Hale's voice. So if you've never listened to Halestorm, I hope you enjoyed that experience. I'll tell you, I love listening to her. Again, brasher style. But again, I like the rougher edge music because there's more of a vulnerability, and at least in the way that I experience it, there's an authenticity where I don't necessarily see that with other pieces in regard to how it best connects with me. The song is very deep, and the video is a very good compliment. I do like the way it starts. Again, Black Vultures vibe back to the interpretive dance choreography, and it's an 18-year dancer. That's always something that appeals to me. I will say I did like the presentation a little better here, and I love Black Vultures as a song. It's one of the songs I have listened to. I'm like, okay, I gotta put this one on my phone. And that one sounds good in the car too. Just go on a shuffle mode listen. I will say I liked the fact this was maybe a little more visually tasteful. I'm trying to understand what best applies to maybe the story of that song, but just some of the clothing choices, it was a bit revealing for my liking. It's kind of like, okay, well, I like the song, but the dancing was fine. It was just like, well, I prefer maybe they were dressed a bit more appropriately, just saying. Maybe, again, it played into the theme of the song. I'm still trying to dissect that one, but it was a good listen. But I liked the interpretive dance side to it, and this was a good blend. I think the softer edge as well. It's an interesting piece because it does function well with the lyrics, but you can see that the choreography is slowed down. It's a lot more graceful. Black Vultures was too, but the style to this, it's much softer. It's slower paced in terms of, they've slowed down the footage. It's got an elegance, but it also has a vulnerability in the fact that everybody's dressed up in white. So there's almost a feeling like of purity or restoration, or perhaps like a heightened sense of, or maybe a perfection being attained. I don't know. But again, like I said, it's a good visual compliment because if you read the lyrics, I'm assuming probably some of you read it maybe as you were going, maybe you're like, I want to focus on the video, now you're going back and maybe rereading them. On surface level, it's just a beautiful piece of, rock music, but the message to this is, it's fascinatingly deep. So if you look more into it, and there's a couple articles that have covered this. Metal Injunction has this quote basically from Lizzie Hill about the album and its inspiration, or the album I believe is titled Back from the Dead, which by the way, I love the cover. It's very red. The screaming faces, again, hey, if you like red, that's something you mean. I've seen that group before, or at least has that look. But I like what HALESTORM did with this. It stresses the darker side to the story, but this is a good piece to lift out of that. It's very edifying. So anyway, the lyrical inspiration is stated in this quote from the Metal Injunction article. We started writing this album about 3 months BC, before COVID. That's very cute. Once we went into lockdowns and were unable to perform and tour, I fell into a dark place and stumbled into my identity crisis. This album is the story of me carving myself out of that abyss. It is a journey of navigating mental health, debauchery, survival, redemption, rediscovery, and still maintaining faith in humanity. That is a very interesting story. And I love how, again, open people are within the musical world. The music that I gravitate toward is stuff that connects. I tend to look more so into the psychological stuff, or at least stuff that has that kind of baseline to it. And even this is a bit of an intersection. It's very realistic in its mindset, but I love seeing people talk about their experiences through music, because as I've stated previously, music it can be a form of therapy. Whether you be, the producer of the music and the creator, or you're just a listener. Music can be therapeutic, as many of our art forms can be. Just as, music is her therapy, this channel is mine in many ways. So when she talks about, her experiences, this is a very interesting way, I think, for someone to lift themselves out of the last couple years. I think we can all relate. Maybe not necessarily as directly here, but there's many points of intersection to which I could see, maybe again, not the best alignment on specific experiences, but a fundamental similarity. When she speaks of an identity crisis, oh yeah, been there. That was something for me too. And that's more of the philosophy of the overall album. This goes a little more in detail to the specific track. An article called HALESTORM releases new track for STEEPLE, drop new album details. The STEEPLE is a true reflection of what music means to me. During our time in purgatory, like the parallel here, faced with an unknown future, I had to rediscover why I still loved music, why there was a hole without live shows that could not be filled with anything else. Writing this song, I found myself again and was reminded of what is really important. This music is our life source, our survival tool, our communion, our sanctuary, and our identity. I invite you to scream that anthem with me and get transported back for the first time you were struck by the power of music. Redemption's here at last, by where it all began, in the place where God and the devil shake hands. That line is so well written. So again, that's a quote that more so plays again into the theme of the overall piece. And if you read the lyrics in their totality, it's a beautiful articulation. As a Christian, I think it's a parallel that works. Now, I don't know necessarily if anybody, or if Lizzie Hale or any of the other group members maybe come from a religious background necessarily, but at the very least they're familiar with the church imagery, because that's highlighted here. And I think, again, it's a good parallel, because the more you think about it, where she's paralleling the concert scene to a religious experience in church, it's an image that carries many similarities to one another, even if maybe you don't think about it necessarily. But like, so where she's in the place where God and the devil shake hands. That's very true for like concert experiences, isn't it? So where she's talking about, using different keywords and terms like kingdom, cathedral, castle, my people, my armor, anchor. They're religious terms. I don't necessarily... Well, I know they're used in regard to the church. I think there are some that are used in a biblical sense, but there are terms that are used to illustrate being within a religious environment, right? That provides you this redemptive experience to something... to a stronghold, essentially, a positive stronghold, ideally. But in terms of you think of a church, and you think of people that are all coming together, right, in a spirit of unity or an agreement. Well, maybe not agreements on every single point, but or even just life paths, but that people are unified in regard to their pursuit of something higher than themselves, or maybe some sort of, well, in the case of I can speak specifically to the non-denominational church, which is maybe where I come from. Maybe perhaps you listening, you don't necessarily align with a religious perspective, maybe come from a religious environment, or you just don't have that backstory. So I'm trying to best lay out the image for you in case maybe it's something you're unfamiliar with. You're looking for that redemptive power, not power, but that redemptive relationship that comes through Jesus Christ, right? That's the path. That image is very potent. But in the way that they compare it to a concert scene, I can easily see that parallel experience, because you think of a concert and you think of people from all different walks of life who have come to music, and perhaps again from an enjoyment perspective, or perhaps, like me in many capacities, a therapeutic perspective. And you find people that when you attend a concert, you're this vast surrounding of people who are all like, we love this band, we love the artistic expression here, we're all enjoying ourselves, right? We're all here for the same purpose, and that is to enjoy someone's talent and their art. I've never really thought about it, though, from the perspective of the singer when they're on stage, but that type of experience, maybe where, again, you're articulating for your lyrics and your performance how you feel about life or where you're at or the world around you. And I can certainly imagine that being a very cathartic a mode of expression and receival, and maybe if you're even further enlightenment on how you look at the world, maybe what your life is like. But it does remind me of a church. So I think the environment analogy is excellent, because it's very much the same, right? You look at a church and you look at a concert, and people, it's sort of like, again, the overall picture, not to homogenize the two, because the two are very different in many capacities, and I don't want to necessarily run the risk of people perceiving me as being like, are you being sacrilegious by minimizing, the impact of the church? No, I'm just saying the analogy in terms of broad structure is very real, and I think applicable. It's interesting for me to read the lyrics. Again, I can appreciate good writing and darker poetry. I love, again, where she writes, where God and the devil shake hands. That is a good, I think, analogy. I would say the reason I find this so meaningful to me is I come from both worlds. So I see the analogy quite clearly, in my own life because of where I've been. I see how the church is that environment where everybody comes together, right, for further refinement and betterment. And where music, people come to, perhaps find healing. Right? The two are very similar sometimes in regard, not exactly, maybe music can be, again, people look to music for varied purposes, but for many people, that through line of looking for further therapy and redemption and clarity and illumination, that's a similar parallel between both environments. And that's something that I know all too well, because I've been in both circles. I've always been a Christian, as I've said, pretty much lifelong. I was raised Lutheran, now I'm non-denominational. I've always been in the church, since I was a kid. But I've always had a love for music. Even when perhaps what would have been ideal being that I was feeling that type of spirit within, and again, I'm not going to go into this too deeply, right? As I said, Symphonies and Small Talk is going to be the avenue for this. But at the very least, I will say, and again, it's not something I talk about very often at all. I really didn't even mention it to any people, but I think this is honestly the most open I've ever been about this publicly. There were many times when I was in one setting where I would look to another mode for healing. Ideally, it would be me seeking the church first. And it wasn't an issue over, faith or theology or even just the church environment itself. Just sometimes, we're in an imperfect world, and living around other people, it can present challenges. sometimes really hard ones to go through. Music was the doorway for me to find a means of healing where I wasn't getting it. In that way that's articulated here, one would ideally see the church, being a kingdom or a cathedral, right? Being around a company of other people who all understand and come to the same motives perhaps as you. Music presents a bit of a relatability to other people, whereas you might not necessarily find that in your personal life. And I didn't, Again, I think I've said this plenty of different times. I don't have the life that best mirrors many of the people that I know. I'm very different. Not necessarily completely by choice. I've just walked many different paths, but I have a very different story, it seems, from other people. So I don't necessarily always find the best relatability, right? Even in church. As much as I want to. Music gave me that. Music helped me find people that was like, you've been down a similar road to me. Not exactly. But at the very least, we've both had to get ourselves, it's been a long road out of hell. That's what she's basically said. Yeah, that's true. That is true. And music was my lifeline in many ways. Now, as I said, I don't in any way want to appear sacrilegious. That's not my intent. But I have to be honest of where I've been. Because otherwise, I can't help you see the full experience. And even I know I'm leaving out a couple details. As I said, Symphonies and Small Talk is going to better flesh this out than this one will here, than this channel will. But I will say, at the very least, broadly speaking, I see a connection here that's very real. And I think the comparison to which Lizzie and the group HALESTORM employ that church imagery, it's a good analogy because it fits in broad structure. Both are a very good complement. Actually, if you look at it from the same perspective of what music can be and what church might ideally should present. It's a beautiful track. I love listening to it. Again, it's very entertaining. I love HALESTORM style so much. I love rock music, but this tune is deep. Maybe we'll even talk about it more on Symphonies and Small Talk. I don't know. Maybe it'll come up again. I have no idea. I can just say, broadly, to simplify this, it's a track that I personally relate with because the analogy is so familiar to me. Because I get it. And I think it definitely best serves the piece. I think the video acts as a nice visual complement in many ways, even metaphorically speaking. Get the white coloring, maybe almost like the choir-like appearance of parts. Even they had some of the background vocals that came in that resembled like a church choir. Well, not exactly, but similar in terms of the style. That's a beautiful song. I love it. It's again, I love HALESTORM, so it's an easy fit for me. Love it. What are your guys' thoughts with the Steeple? I've wanted to listen to this for long enough, and I finally got to. Now I get to play it in the car. I don't have to be upset that I have to keep skipping it. It's so irritating. Let me know what your thoughts are down below about the Steeple. Don't forget all the good stuff. Like, subscribing, and sharing that bell. Make sure, as I said, you hit the subscribe button for Symphonies and Small Talk. As I said, that channel will be coming online on January 1st, should everything go according to, hopefully, intention. But I cannot wait to talk about more music there with you. And, of course, on this channel, we'll talk about more music, going forward as well. We'll see what your next group might be. I'm not sure exactly yet. I think I got more I'm looking at today. I just need to refresh my mind on who it is. But until we get to watch more from perhaps HALESTORM on this channel, who knows? Or maybe I'll be on Symphonies and Small Talk or whatever music we get to listen to or whatever we get to watch for the first time together. I will see you guys then. But until that point, thanks for watching this video. I love you guys. Don't forget to love yourselves, your fellow man. God bless and peace.